Welcome, fight fans. Thanks for joining me tonight. Sorry if you've been watching. I have had a little bit of audio problems. It's late. I guess I'm not really thinking very good right now. But I'm going to get through this video. I'm going to start over. I'm going to get through it. I do apologize. Like I said, once again, my mistake. Thought that I had the microphone on, but I had muted it because of a different segment going on. Little bit of a mistake. Gonna keep those to a minimum, and I hope you all bear with me. Once again, Mark G, 203 Fight Network. I'm here to give you the Tough 25 Redemption Episode 7 review from Wednesday night. It is Friday, June 2nd, 2017. Happy Friday, everyone. It is 1:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I am ready to give you my review. Before we get into that, I do want to apologize for not having this out the other night. I do, miss those sometimes, but I did have a friend that came up from Florida, my friend Art, good friend of mine. Haven't seen him in a while. Kind of came up, surprised a lot of people. It was his birthday, so, we went out. He had called me around 9. I had a funny feeling when he called that he was up here. Just had, like I said, a funny feeling. And haven't really talked to him too often. And I was thinking it was his birthday, and then he had called me. And it's like, so I was like, And it was cool. Good time. Hope to see him again. Before he heads back. I know he's only up here a couple days, but we are going to talk about the Fight Pass Prelims this Saturday night, June 3rd, 2017 in Brazil. Jose Aldo versus Max Holloway. And we have 3 Fight Pass Prelims. The opening Fight Pass Prelims is Stevenson Alcantara Figueiredo versus Marco Beltran. Figueiredo making his UFC debut. And second fight of the night, I believe, on the UFC Fight Pass Prelims, I believe the second fight is a women's matchup. Viviane Pereira versus Jamie Moyle. 12-0 Pereira versus 4-1 Moyle. And Luan Chagas versus Jim Wallhead should be great. We're going to get into that a little bit later. But before we do get into the into the Tough 25 Episode 7 Dark Horse, Cody Garbrandt's team 0-6. 0-6. Cody, you're 0-6, bro. What's up with that, Cody? Versus DIllashaw, making Cody not look very good. And unfortunately, a reflection on Team Alpha Male. And I love Team Alpha Male, but like I said, is kind of a reflection on them being 0-6 and just on the total fight picks. But coming up right after this, we're going to get into the review. We're going to talk a little bit about Cyborg before we get into UFC 212. A lot of stuff going on. Dana White interviews this week. But stay tuned right after the intro. Welcome back, everyone. Mark G here. If you caught any, I'm going to try to probably take them down just because I had these 2 live videos. One was like 25 minutes, and I think I did about 15 minutes of audio with no audio because I muted my mic for a different it's a long story. I'm doing my I do enjoy this. It does get a little bit frustrating at times, but what are you going to do? But let's talk about the UFC's reality TV show, The Ultimate Fighter, which is in its 25th season. 25 seasons, pretty amazing. Been going strong Strong, I guess you can say, might be a little bit of an overstatement, but they are on the air and they've crossed over and they've been on, I believe, 3, possibly 4 different networks. I know that they were on, obviously, Spike from the rip until the UFC had the new TV deal with Fox, which, I can't remember how long ago that was, and I'm not sure if they've re-upped. I really don't remember at this point. It's 1:30 in the morning, and really been concentrating on what I'm going to talk about right now, and while that's in my head, I can't really think of too many other things, but I don't want to lose my train of thought on it all. But yeah, like I was saying, being crossed over a few different networks. FX it was on for a short period of time until FS1, Fox Sports, came out, was branded Fox Sports 1, till they tried, I guess, a little bit of a rebrand, or at least on how they want to be known now as FS1. Either way, it's a little bit seems a little bit difficult for me to say. I guess I guess words are hard, but we're gonna see how this episode 7, it's just Dark Horse, went down. And like I said in the intro, Cody, man, you're 0-6. So disappointed that he's 0-6. I think a lot of it has to do with some of his picks. Seems like he might have tried to keep some of those guys close to home, considering the fact that, I know he's had 2, maybe 3 guys from Ohio, and I know that he's from Ohio, and I can't really criticize to say that if I was in his situation and I had a few different guys from this state of Connecticut, the not so great state in a lot of ways, pretty good state in some other ways, but I can't really complain too much. I grew up here, and it's where I'm from, and you gotta love where you're from, right? So that could be part of the success that he's not having, and he thought that he actually might have on this show. But so far, Team Garbrandt, Seth Baczynski, which was eliminated week 1, I think, or week 1, week 2. Eddie Gordon, who was eliminated. Mehdi Baghdad, who was eliminated. Haider Hassan, eliminated. Julian Lane, eliminated. And Johnny Nunez, eliminated. Justin Edwards remains the dark horse. As for Team Dillashaw, fighters that have moved on so far: James Krause, Jesse Taylor, Ramsey Nijem, Diego Lima, and Tom Galecchio and Gilbert Smith. And it's been a pretty exciting season. The ratings have sucked. All around the ratings haven't been good. But if this was done more, I think if more people have watched, more people enjoy it, and probably, they would be surprised. So we'll see. They're already talking about Tough 26. They're going to be bringing in the women flyweight, the 125-pound division. They couldn't get the 145-pound division launched, and they want to. The champion, as of right now, wants to vacate the belt because she does not want to take on the next challenger. And I think as of right now, at least from everything I've heard with Dana White in interviews, they are going to be dodging punches here. You got to keep the head movement. They do plan on booking Chris Cyborg for UFC 214, which is in Anaheim, California, which would be a no-brainer considering that's the area that she basically lives in now and trains and whatnot. And so the main event for that's going to be John Jones versus Daniel Cormier, and there's also going to be Jimmy Manawa versus Olzenik. I might be getting his name. Olzenik, who won the fight against Misha Serkinov by first-round knockout. That right hand, it didn't look too bad, but it didn't actually seem like it crushed his head up against the fence, and I wouldn't want to get hit by that guy, whether it brushes up against me or lands flush or whatever. Anyhow, that's turning out to be a pretty exciting card. Can't wait for that. To get back to tough. this has been a good season. I've enjoyed it for the most part, and they're doing a wild card, and this season is for $250,000, and they're actually paying these guys $5,000 if they win the fight, an extra $5,000 if they get the finish. So I'm really enjoying that, and I was really enjoying seeing that because these guys are actually winning some money. At least this disclosed out there. Who knows if they got anything to come on the show? I'm sure they did. I've always wondered about that, and I know in some seasons I bet some guys have gotten some cash to come on the show and compete. So Joe Daddy Stevenson versus Justin Edwards. This is the final fight between the teams. They will pick the wild card after the fight. I did give my opinion on the wild card and who I thought that was going to get that earlier in one of my last videos. I probably did it after my last review and might even have talked about it in my UFC Stockholm reviewer preview. All three of those videos live on the channel here, 203fightnetwork.com. Please check those out if you get a chance. Also in those drop downs, I did leave an annotation, I believe, in there for my first episode of my podcast, The Objective Perspective, Episode 1. I went over the lightweights, the state of the lightweight division, and talked about Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, where I thought that was going, where I thought the UFC was going to try to go with the lightweight division. And if you look about that was about 6 weeks ago, maybe more, 7 weeks ago. And if you've seen the way that the UFC lightweight division has gone and where the McGregor-Mayweather fights, possible fight has gone, I kind of was right. I've been right on point. Don't mean to toot my own horn, but I kind of was. But what are you going to do? Thank you so much. Please leave a comment. Please hit that like button. If you don't like it, hit that dislike. I'm Mark G. This is a 203 Fight Network. And now we're going to do the review. So, starts out just like your normal, the last 6 episodes or so. They have basically that same format, that same thing that they've been doing. They're gonna give you a past little history of the fighter, and then they're gonna cut back, and they're gonna give you the other fighter, and then they're gonna cut back. Then give you a fighter maybe talking to some guys in the house. Then they're gonna cut back, and then give you the other fighter training. They're gonna cut back. Another guy gonna be training. So, and you basically have the same thing. So, we'll talk about that real quick, and we'll give you a quick rundown. It started out with Joe Stevenson. Joe's a recovering alcoholic. Basically, I think he might have said he was drunk for like 12 straight years or some crazy number or something. But a functioning drunk, as he called it. And Joe's a great guy. I've met him before. And I wish him the best. I really do. They talked about his fight against BJ Penn, which was a great moment, man. I love that. I remember that to where I was. I remember where I saw that fight. That fight was actually in an afternoon. That was in England. It was actually one that they had a name for too. Shit, I was like, he was 88 rapid fire or some crazy number. And yeah, that was great, man. BJ Penn. That's when BJ Penn was just a freaking beast, man, and why he's in the Hall of Fame and why he's been, he was just a beast, man. It's back when he was going through people like crazy. This is Sean Shirk, you're dead, and he was just killing people, man. I remember UFC 101. He choked out Kenny Florian fast. I mean, he kicked later on. He kicked a hole in Diego Sanchez's head. That was the first guy to really stop Diego. It was BJ Penn, and they showed that the highlights of Joe Daddy against BJ. Getting choked out, so that was one of the greatest experiences of his life, greatest fights. They showed Joe with his kids, show him training back and forth. TJ does have some confidence in him, and just trying to give him some pointers and tips, and also be able to take some pointers and tips from Joe. Joe is a certain. I was trying to say on the last live that I tried to shoot, and Joe is a surefire Hall of Famer. In my opinion, tough 2 winner, second season of The Ultimate Fighter, the season that was written on the back of a cocktail napkin in an alleyway in Las Vegas after The Ultimate Fighter 1 finale, where Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonner basically just gave you the fight of their lives, man. I remember where I've seen most of the fights that I've seen. in my old house where I used to live for a long time, and just seen so many fights, and that was great. I remember how that season progressed, and of the Ultimate Fighter, and just how it went down. And they've come so far, man. They've come so far. Joe Stevenson winning that second season, fighting now on the 25th season in a redemption episode, fighting Justin Edwards, another one. Justin Edwards, tough 16, I believe it was. Lost his elimination fight to Tony Ferguson, and then was able to come back, got a win, but obviously didn't get very far throughout the tournament. Tony Ferguson ended up winning that season. That's where Brock Lesnar Jr. Dos Santos coached. That fight never came to fruition. Brock Lesnar, I believe, did have another problem with the diverticulitis, and that fight was canceled as well, and they never had rescheduled. Tony Ferguson went on, obviously, to be one of the top lightweights in the world on a huge 9-fight winning streak right now, hoping to get booked for an interim title fight very soon. Justin Edwards did pretty well against him in that season of The Ultimate Fighter in that elimination fight. Was brought back, like I said, and had a win in his UFC career as wins over Josh Neer, submissions and some knockouts, but also has lost some fights. Obviously, I believe lost 4 in a row before he was cut not too long ago. So these two matching up, you would kind of think that as long as Joe could control the fight where he wants it on the ground or against the fence, that he might, be able to do well. If Justin could keep it on the outside and land a lot of shots out there and control it from there, then he would obviously do pretty well. So not too much going on in this. They kept a lot of the fluff, as I like to call it. They kept that short. So as we get into the fight, Justin, man, he came out swinging, and let me tell you, he was landing shots. He was landing a lot of shots. Joe was hanging in there and throwing back, and he had done a great job, I thought, and at least on some of the takedowns. There was a reversal. Justin had a reversal on him. Actually had Joe in a guillotine for a little bit. He was able to get out and scramble back. These guys, they kept back and forth. This was probably one of the better fights of the season on here. And, you'll see where that actually had gotten them. At least they gotten the loser anyway, this fight. So I thought that it was a close first round, but I thought Justin won. I didn't think it was close to where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe he lost. But, Justin did the same in the first round. Second round, he did in the first round, and a lot of the same type of things happened. And it was good, man. It was a good fight, a really good fight, pretty action packed and back and forth. Justin landed more shots, landed harder shots, and it just seemed like in TJ Dillashaw had quoted this, and I was thinking the same thing kind of when it happened, and he said it seemed like every time Joe got hit, he kind of woke up a little more, and that actually definitely did seem so. It did seem that way. Sorry about that. It did seem like he would get hit and then kind of wake up and then kind of go back and attack, and it was but it was definitely a good fight, and it was definitely an entertaining fight, and I was surprised that some people kind of thought it was a lot closer than what it was. So they had the second round end, and a lot of people were, it's going to be a third round, and I really didn't think that there was even that kind of a possibility. But I believe Justin had taken it both rounds, and he had won the fight. And well-deserved victory for Justin Edwards. Congratulations to him. Works as a air conditioning and heating repairs. They showed that on the show. Didn't really talk about Justin too much in his life there. Trains out of Ohio, drives a long way back and forth in his jiu-jitsu. Like I was saying before on the earlier, that it seemed like Tody had picked a lot of those guys that were in, lived in Ohio, and he was kind of knew him that way. So it worked out, though. It worked out for him. Justin, the last pick on Cody's team, finally gets Cody Garbrandt's team a win, ends up 1-6 in the preliminaries. TJ Dillashaw not able to go undefeated, 6-1 with his team. Good season so far, and they have a wild card matchup coming up. As I talked about earlier, and what I said, I believe last week, I thought Hadir Hassan had a good possibility. He had a good fight. He seems to always get these chances, just because of the style of fighter I think that he is. There's a couple guys that are medically cleared. You did have Eddie Gordon, who also had a good possibility of being the wild card as well. Obviously, these guys are all coming off of Cody's team. Johnny Nunez as well, quite possibly could qualify for that wild card. And the loser of this fight, Joe Daddy Stevenson. So, let's get into that. So they go into Dana White's office, and I think Dana White's like on a video call or something. I don't even remember. It's like a virtual Dana. The dude's just like everywhere now. But so Dana, they're talking back and forth, and Dana takes the what he thought. He listens to Cody. He listens to TJ. TJ obviously, Cody. This is the thing. And I know Cody got real upset. But Cody had so many guys to fight for and he went first. I don't know if he asked Cody first, if that was the reason why he asked Cody first, but Cody went first. Cody had a lot of guys that he can fight for, like I said. I just named you 3, and then there was actually a couple more. So I think he might even have fought for Seth trying to get another shot. And Seth, I think, is another guy that's from Ohio. Anyhow, you have Hassan, you have Gordon, you have Basinski, you have, it's a whole bunch of guys. So he has all these guys he has to fight for, he has to push for, he has to get out there, right? And TJ was like, dude, I think it should be Joe. Joe had a great fight. He's a former winner. He's a legend. He's this. He's that. Really talked him up, man, and really went in there well. I was really impressed. And he said, and while he was saying it, he just kind of was like, obviously that's the guy from my team, and I'm going to push for the guy from my team. Plus, obviously he's clear to go, and he just fought, and Cody's like, yeah, he just fought. He shouldn't be fighting again, and it's a little hypocritical. But I think, the smart thing that TJ did was TJ just came back and he was like, yeah, well, with Cody's team, I like Hadir, and that was, I think that's basically it. And Cody got really frustrated thinking that TJ basically made that matchup, and in a way, you could kind of see and look at it that way. But if you're smart enough to understand Dana White, at least, and you're smart enough to see what he's done in the past, especially with some of these guys, like bringing them back, I think you really had a. And if you listen to Dana talk throughout, this season, and maybe they didn't hear and they haven't had a chance, but I had a good feeling that they were going to bring Hader back, man. He had a decision fight. It wasn't too crazy. It was a good battle. It wasn't like he took a crazy amount of punishment. Obviously, he's still good to come back, and it was a tough fight. Eddie Gordon, he didn't seem like he was very impressed by Dana. He didn't really have a good fight. He lost to that Tom pretty early, I think, right? First fight, and that kind of set the whole tone. So, it was tough. And I know that Cody goes back to his team, and he's basically told his team that, oh, well, TJ called the shot. TJ made the matchup. And it's like, no, Cody, no. TJ didn't make the matchup. Dana made the matchup. But he had kind of convinced a few guys on his team. But Hassan took that like, oh, hey, man, whatever, I'll take it. And he's happy to be there. And I kind of like him in this fight. I think if Joe Stevenson gets hit with the same shots from Hader Hassan that he was getting hit with from Justin Edwards, I don't think it's going to last for Joe, man. Hassan is a scary hitter, man, and he when he hits you, man, you can tell it's got to hurt because those guys, they fall, man, and they kind of stay down for a while. So we'll see. Another thing that happened was, right before they kind of went out and made that wild card announcement or whatever the hell they did, Eddie Gordon was kind of really jumping down TJ's throat, telling him you don't appreciate this, and we all fight. And, I kind of thought that was really out of place. And I know that Eddie Gordon's probably super frustrated and really wanted that chance. And, he's got a family that he's trying to feed, just like everybody does. You try to be a little, have a little empathy for that, because we all do things for ourselves, our families, and to provide. So I hope he's able to do something on the regional scene. I was kind of wondering today if some of these guys were going to actually get some fights, like on the prelims of the finale, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. As right now, we're going to have that wild card fight. I believe that's next week, and that's going to be Hader Hassan, 34-year-old, 5'10", 170 pounds, 6'2", fighting Joe Daddy Stevenson, who is a specialist in in his jiu-jitsu, but is he going to be strong enough to keep those chokes on on Hader? I kind of liked Joe in this because I thought he had that, he's almost could have been a little bit of a wild card because, Holden, he's has such a strong, ground game and submission game, So we'll see. I'm happy for him. He's got that second chance. I didn't really like how a lot of that played out and how, they kind of thought that it was TJ that made the matchup. All TJ did was throw it out there. He just happened to get the matchup he wanted. Did he kind of plant the seed with Dana? Sure, but why are you going to want to try and beat him up over it? And it did, it was almost almost to like where he was bullying, trying to bully TJ. So, obviously nothing seemed like it came out of it, and we move on. We're going to move on to next week, episode 8. Nothing too crazy between the coaches this week, but I assume that you'll probably see something next week. So we're going to segue into, that's right, UFC 212. That is this Saturday, June 3rd, live on pay-per-view, 10 p.m. in the East. The champion, Jose Aldo, has only lost one time in, I believe, the last 12 years, against Max Holloway, the interim champion. Too long of a story to explain why we have an interim title and a regular title. It does have to do with Conor McGregor. Max Holloway has done a great job, I think, of putting it out there and promoting this fight, trying to promote this fight, trying to get his name out there, trying to get a fire lit under Jose Aldo. When you get to a point where Jose Aldo is, sometimes it's hard it's hard for people to it's hard for you to want to fight people, I guess you could say. And that's not saying that you're scared, but I understand sometimes at his point. He's fought for a long time. He's fought in a lot of fights. He's pulled out of a lot of fights as well, though. I'm just glad it looks like this fight's going to happen. We will see. He's talked about all this week how, he doesn't see him fighting McGregor again. Holloway doesn't really care if he fights McGregor again. The co-main event in this is Claudia Gadelha, 100 strawweight fight against Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Phenomenal women's matchup. These two women are fantastic fighters. Can't wait for that. But we are not here to talk about them yet. That will be later on tonight, tomorrow, however you want to look at it. Getting a little late here, 2 a.m. on the East Coast. So I'm going to go over these 3 fights. And then we're going to get out of here, and hopefully we won't screw anything up, because this is my last try. I did have a couple other videos that I had to stop, and then it was just a little like, I do have this going on a delay as I'm recording, but I'm really not smart enough to figure out how to, cut all that shit out. But first fight of the night is going to be, as I said earlier in the intro, Diavance Alcantara Figueiredo, who is 11-0, fighting in the flyweight division out of Belém Pará, Brazil. This kid is 11-0, has 5 KOs, 5 submissions, 1 decision. Like I said, his UFC debut was fought in Jungle Fight. If you pay any attention to some of these fights that happen in Brazil, Jungle Fight has produced a lot of UFC fighters, almost kind of a breeding ground. So he's fighting Marco Beltran, who is 8-4, fighting out of Mexico, coming down from the 135-pound division. Lost his last fight to 14th ranked. I don't even believe I just said 14th ranked. Top bantamweight Joe Soto. And this fight was on the Dos Anjos Ferguson card, which was in November of 2016. And he's actually 3-1 in the UFC. Actually, obviously not a bad record. Has a finish by rear naked choke, 2 decisions. Beat Marlon Vera in his UFC debut. Which is weird. I believe this kid is coming off an Ultimate Fighter, because he fought the Ultimate Fighter Latin America Season 1. Had lost, and did also have a win. It was in Latin America Season 2 as well. So Season 1 and Season 2, this kid has fought on both, which obviously is rare. He actually, that is a pretty rare thing. Obviously didn't get much of a UFC contract there after the fact. I didn't see that. So I'm going to, I don't know how the kid's going to handle this weight cut. He's kind of going to be a tall 125er. So we will, like I said, we'll see if we'll see how he does there. But I'm liking this 3-named assassin Alcantara Figueiredo, and I think he wins his UFC debut here, and I think he might even do it by an impressive showing. Might even be by a submission. So don't blink in this fight if you have UFC Fight Pass. I believe these fights are going to be starting around 6:30. And should be fun. And the second fight of the evening, I believe this is the second fight, is a women's matchup in the strawweight division. These two young ladies, Viviane Pereira, age 23, looks just like a killer. 5 feet tall, 115 pounds. She is 12-0, 4 KOs in her career, 2 submissions. Does have a victory over Valerie Letourneau by split decision back at UFC 206 when Holloway demolished Anthony Pettis. I remember this fight when that girl fought this fight, man. She's definitely she's a beast in her own right. She's fighting Jamie Moyle. Jamie, who is 4-1, fights from Florida. Fought in Invicta for a long time. Had some pretty good wins in Invicta. There's J.J. Aldrich and also Amy Caldwell Montenegro. had also fought on that season of The Ultimate Fighter, season 23, as a victory over Caitlin Curran in that finale back in December of 2016. So, should be a interesting fight. Cannot sorry, she was not on The Ultimate Fighter. She was, was on The Ultimate Fighter 23. Fought on The Ultimate Fighter 24 season finale. That was the flyweight contest tournament that they did where Tim Elliott had won. This is going to be a tough fight for her, man. She has a little bit of experience, obviously, 4-1. And she's not a bad fighter in her own right. No KOs, but, three decision victories and one submission. But I'm going to have to go with Viviane in this fight. She's definitely she's a strong fighter. She's a beast. I know Letourneau was fighting at 115, not really enjoying fighting at 115. Is now signed with the Bellator 125-pound women's division, and great for her. Very, very happy that and she's very happy she doesn't have to cut weight anymore, and I'm happy for her if she's happy. So we're going to go with, Pereira in that one as well. So now we're going to move on to the third fight on the UFC Fight Pass Prelims. Luan Changes versus Jim Wallhead. And Jim Wallhead is like a journeyman, man. You would literally call him a journeyman. 29-10. Fights out of England. 37 years old. This fight is a welterweight fight. Wallhead had lost his last UFC fight by a pretty close split decision. I'm just looking because I had thought that I guess I was wrong. I thought he had some fights, other fights in UFC. I knew he had some fights in Bellator, but I guess made his UFC debut at UFC Fight Night 93, Arlovski versus Barnett back in September. Lost, like I said, split decision to Justin Ari. Luan Chagas, Chagas. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. 14-2. Fights out of Brazil, of course. Had also lost his last fight to Eric Silva by rear naked choke at the Cyborg Landsberg Fight Night card back in September. Had a draw versus Sergio Moraes back in May of last year. And those are his only two UFC fights. Pretty tough fight to call. Going to have to go with the Brazilian on this as well. Just looking at some of his past fights and some of his opponents. He's fought some strong guys. Not to say that Wallhead hasn't. But this kid finished all of his fights. He has 6 KOs and 8 submissions. And both his victories were by sub, so it's gonna be tough to see him. I don't know. I don't really see him get knocked out. I don't see Wallhead submitting him. I see this kid in Brazil. I think he's got that advantage that way. So we're gonna get real in depth tomorrow, a little later on when we do the full preview later on Friday night. Probably gonna go on about 9:30, hopefully. Hopefully, there won't be no screw ups. And we'll, get that going. But it's getting late. I do want to thank you all for joining me. Hit that subscribe button if you like the video, and hit like if you like the video. And if you want to hear more content, UFC and Bellator. Bellator 180 and Bellator NYC live on pay-per-view June 24th. We're 3 weeks away. And everyone still thinks that shit's going to happen, man. And it's not. It's not going to happen. Vanderlei Silva, if he gets licensed, I will literally eat a peanut butter sandwich on the show. Live. On air. How about that? So, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about that. Let me know what you think about the video. Sorry about the screw-ups. Let me know who you guys like this Saturday. And let me know who you think's going to win that wild card fight next week on The Ultimate Fighter. But I'm Mark G. It's 2:09 a.m. Eastern Time, Friday, June 3rd, June 2nd. Whoa, I can't even get that shit right. June 2nd, 2017. And I'm out.